What's up, everybody? How's it going? Thank you guys for jumping in. I appreciate you watching over from YouTube. We're getting pretty close to 50,000 followers on YouTube, so I appreciate all the support over here. We are also live on TikTok. If you guys are hanging out on TikTok and you have any questions, feel free to jump over to YouTube. Like I said, we're getting real close to 50,000. When we hit 50,000, I'm going to be doing a giveaway of some of my new, I have both coffee mugs and water bottles. So that should be happening pretty soon here. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, if you guys are hanging out on TikTok, you have any questions, jump on over to YouTube. And as for YouTube, it looks like we already have some questions over here. Ella, hello. Thank you for jumping over. I appreciate it. All right. John asked, can you start a disability claim even if drugs cause your mental illness? So I guess I don't know about a lot about disability. I actually still work, so I never had to go on disability. My psychiatrist did recommend it at one point when my symptoms were severe enough, but I refused to do so. I probably should have back then, but yeah, so I've never actually been on disability, so I don't know a lot about how that works. My mom is on disability for schizophrenia, but I don't know enough about it to like answer any questions about it. All right. And yeah, so same thing, John. I don't know enough about it to actually answer any questions specifically about the disability aspect of it. Oh. Ella asked, I have schizophrenia. When were you diagnosed? I started having symptoms when I was like 19. I wasn't diagnosed until I was about 21, because that was after I got out of jail. It was after I got sober. And so that it wasn't until after all of that happened that I finally was able to go get a diagnosis and start getting help. Jumped from TikTok. Hello. Is it Chandra? Thank you so much for coming over. I appreciate it. You're on disability, but you're hoping to get off soon. Yeah, absolutely. I know it's tough. My mom has been on it for years now, and she wants to work, but she literally can't. She wouldn't last at a job. She's tried here and there, and it's never worked out. Frankie Talks asked if do you make any friends with any of the voices people you hear? No. I mean, like, I have positive, funny conversations sometimes with hallucinations, but once I identify that they're hallucinations, I won't talk to my hallucinations anymore because I don't want to make it harder for my brain to differentiate between what's real and what's not. So as soon as I recognize that I'm having hallucinations, I stop talking to them. I started having symptoms around that time too. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a pretty common age. Like 18 to 25 is the most common for males, and for women, I think it's a little bit older. But yeah, it's like that same timeline. Where do you sell your merch? Currently, the hat was just a 1 week drop with Finley hats, so this is not available. I do have a shirt on in the link in my bio of my TikTok and Instagram, where I sell my medicated and caffeinated shirts, where it has like a pill bottle and a coffee cup. So I sell a shirt that says medicated and caffeinated on it. These are not for sale yet. I want to do a giveaway for a couple before I order a bunch more and actually sell them. So those will be available soon. I really like them. They're super high quality. I just wanted to make sure I liked them and everyone else liked them before I actually offered them. So the only merch I sell right now is the link in my TikTok bio. You can buy shirts that say medicated and caffeinated, and it has my username and my logo on it. I like it a lot. I wear it all the time. I haven't done a video about that shirt yet just because I've been so busy with other stuff, but soon. I love your account on here, Insta and TikTok. I wish I could be more open with my diagnosis. It's tough. It's not something I was able to do right away. You know, it's not like I got diagnosis. It's not like I got my diagnosis and started talking about it immediately. I didn't even start TikTok until like 4 or 5 years after my diagnosis. So it took a while for me to get to a point where I could talk about it. My wife came in and she said, "It is I, Nature Daydream." Uh, you live in Canada? That's awesome. I actually I can't go to Canada, not because of my mental illness, but because I also have a felony. So it's hard for me to get to Canada. Do you get hallucinations when talking to someone that is actually real? Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes I also don't know if the person I'm talking to is real or not, which is why I like discovered my phone technique that I use, because I have a hard time differentiating between people that are real and people that are hallucinations sometimes. Someone asked, I have had symptoms for about 2 years. I'm 15, so maybe it's too early for me to know I have schizophrenia. Talk to my therapist, but she doesn't know either. Any advice? Yeah, 15 is pretty young. So not that you couldn't have it. Obviously, ask a doctor to be referred to a psychiatrist if it's really bad. But 15 is pretty young for it to develop. It usually doesn't start developing for people until like 18 to 25 is kind of the age range that's most common with developing schizophrenia or psychosis. Not that like it doesn't happen younger, it's just a little more uncommon. So that might be why they're like weary to give out a diagnosis. The distractions tip you gave, I've been doing without even knowing. I'm glad you put that out there. I do that a lot because I always have found that distractions help me with just avoiding. I don't want to say avoiding because it's not avoiding. It's like distractions have been really effective in me like not drawing too much attention to my symptoms. Like that's why I watch TV shows, play video games, stuff like that. Mark asked, "Do you get confused for having DID?" 100% of the time. Yeah. So with DID, there are still a lot of people who don't understand that DID and schizophrenia are two different diagnoses. So especially on the internet, people constantly think that when I like do content about schizophrenia, that I'm talking about DID. It's a really common misconception, and I get it all the time. Have you named any of your voices? I haven't, mostly because I don't get a lot of reoccurring hallucinations. So my visual hallucinations are almost never reoccurring. I have hallucinated, I have had reoccurring hallucinations. It's just not super common for me. And then auditory hallucinations Sometimes I'll hear them say they have names, but I try not to pay attention to them because to me, that makes it, like I said, this goes back to me trying to make it not too hard to differentiate between what's real and what's not, you know? If you guys are on TikTok and you have any questions, jump on over to YouTube. I'm trying to keep all the questions to one platform. That way I can pull them up on the screen and everyone can see the questions that are being asked. Sarah, thank you so much for this comment. That's very, very kind of you. I appreciate it. Do you remember what it feels like to be deep in psychosis? Yeah. And so it's like, obviously with medication, I experience less symptoms of like psychosis and I experience less delusions and paranoia, but I still experience them, you know. It depends on how I'm doing personally. It depends on what else I have going on in my life, but I definitely do still experience those symptoms. Hallucinations are the one I experience the most now that I'm medicated. The I don't really struggle a lot with delusions or paranoia much anymore, thankfully, because of my antipsychotics, but I do still have hallucinations and I mean disassociation I still get a lot too. Are there questions people ever ask that are triggering to you? Which questions should people definitely not ask someone with schizophrenia? The two things I always say is like, I don't mind if you ask me any questions about my experience with schizophrenia. Don't ever ask me if my hallucinations are delusions, or don't ever ask me if my hallucinations are demons, some sort of spiritual awakening, or ghosts. That's just not helpful to ask someone with schizophrenia, and it could very easily lead to delusions in people with schizophrenia. So I always say, just if even if that's something you believe, that's fine. Everyone's entitled to their own beliefs, even if I don't agree with them. Anyone's entitled to believe what they want to believe. I know there are cultures specifically, like Native American culture, a lot of times sees schizophrenic symptoms as like people who are shamans and stuff like that, or people who are gifted in some way. That's fine. Other people are allowed to have their own beliefs. Just understand that it can be really dangerous to push that stuff to a person with schizophrenia, psychosis, severe mental illnesses like that. Someone on TikTok asked if schizophrenia is caused by trauma or if it's hereditary. Schizophrenia is both. It includes both. It is also, I can't think of the word right now. Sorry, my brain just stopped working momentarily there. It is both genetic and can be caused by environmental factors. So, like environmental factors and genetics both increase your chance of developing schizophrenia. Any advice for seeking hospital help? I would say be willing to admit yourself so that it doesn't get to a point where you have to be admitted against your will, because no experience is ever going to be good if it's involuntary commitment, because usually that means you're too far gone to make the call yourself, or they believe you're going to be a danger to yourself or others. And so if you feel like you're getting to a very unstable point and you have a good care team and you have a good connection with your psychiatrist and the local hospital that you get treatment at, don't be afraid to go in yourself. And that's something I'm saying that I also need to be better with. So I'm not saying I'm perfect. It's also something I need to work on, is being able to accept that I might need help above what I am capable of giving myself, and being able to admit myself when that happens. Someone asked, they had a close family member recently diagnosed. Why, when she's delusional, can she not realize it, especially since she's had them before? I'll tell you right now, if I start having a delusion, I'm not going to know either. And I'm a very well spoken person. I do speaking events. I travel. Doesn't matter. If I start going into an episode of delusion or psychosis, I will not be able to tell the difference, because it's not me calling the shots anymore. The thing about schizophrenia, and the reason so many people go without diagnosis, is because when you're delusional, um, no one can convince you otherwise. Your brain is literally telling you something that isn't true. And anytime someone tries to tell you the opposite, what they're doing is they're feeding into the opposite end of that delusion. So if, say, I had a delusion where I thought I was in a coma from a car crash I was in for like well over a year. And if you were to tell me that that wasn't true, you're a part of my delusion and my paranoia now. Now I think you're in on it some way. And so, like, you can't convince a person who's delusional that what they're experiencing isn't real because it's real to them. When I was really delusional and I wouldn't get help for my symptoms, you could not convince me otherwise because that's what I believed. That was something that, it was real to me. All of the things I experienced were real to me. It's the same with hallucinations. When I'm having hallucinations, things that should make sense don't make sense, and vice versa. So, like, if I'm having a hallucination, yes, I should be able to recognize that someone I don't know shouldn't be in my house. But all hallucinations come with a bit of delusion. And so, in that moment, that's so real to me that I will not believe otherwise. My wife will tell me, like, "Oh, you're hearing things." No, I'm not. I'm convinced in that moment. I'm like, "No, I'm not." Because to me, that's real. It's happening in front of me. And her telling me it's not true is something I'm not going to believe because I'm like, no, I see it. It's here. It's so weird to explain when I'm doing well because when I'm sitting here and I'm doing really well and I'm not struggling actively with like hallucinations or delusions, stuff like that, you look back on it and you're like, yeah, I don't know how I believe that. But in the moment, you're not going to convince me otherwise. If you guys are on TikTok, jump on over to YouTube. We are doing a live Q&A over on YouTube. Not trying to ignore you guys on TikTok. It's just a little bit easier to filter through questions over on YouTube, and then I can display them and call out everyone's name and everything. Plus, we're getting really close to 50,000 followers on YouTube, and I really appreciate the support over there. Let's see. Heidi asked, how often do I have hallucinations? Before I was medicated, it was pretty much constantly. I would have hallucinations. Like anytime I was awake, I was either having hallucinations or paranoid or delusional. Now that I'm medicated, I probably have hallucinations once or twice a week. And if I'm doing really well, I'll go a full week without any hallucinations. If I'm doing really bad, I'll have hallucinations an entire week. It really just depends on, my medication. If I have any stressors going on in my life at the time, there's a lot of different things that can, yeah, there's a lot of different things that can affect that. My brain is just all over the place today. Well, you kept your non-promise promise. I'm gonna try to start streaming more Ace because I miss doing these, and it's just like I'm trying to get back into being more, being live on my platforms more and talking to people. Schizophrenic NYC, Schizophrenic NYC just jumped in the TikTok chat. Everyone say hi to her. Yeah, if you guys are on TikTok, feel free to jump on over to YouTube. Username is Schizophrenic Hippie over here. Someone asked, my voices I hear are the same voice as people I've heard before. Is it the same for you? My voices, once again, this is the same as like for me, when I have visual hallucinations, I don't recognize the people I'm seeing. It goes the same for the voices. It's not voices I recognize. There are people who get a lot of reoccurring hallucinations. That's not something I experience often. What's your favorite road trip snack? This is such a random question, but I love it. I really like Pringles and Kit Kats. I think that would be my go-to. Lee wants to know, why do so many people with schizophrenia smoke cigarettes? My uncle is a chain smoker, and I hear a lot of others with the illness do too. I don't know. I did read some sort of study about nicotine and schizophrenia. I think because like nicotine can give you like brief, it can almost be like a form of stress relief. I think people with schizophrenia might get very brief symptom relief if they, smoke cigarettes. I smoked cigarettes for a while. I haven't in years. But every time Coasty comes into my TikTok live, he gives me the gift with the cowboy hat, and I always get so confused for a second. But no, I'm sure it has something to do with like temporary symptom relief, or like probably just helps with like stress and anxiety, stuff like that. But obviously, it's health wise, it's gonna hurt you in the long run. So I had to quit myself. Are you able to identify them now? Sometimes, yes. So because of medication, sometimes I'm able to differentiate a little bit better between reality and hallucinations, but not all the time. It's still, that's why I use coping techniques like my phone and now my smart glasses to try to help me decipher if what I'm seeing is actually there or not. When you phone record your hallucinations, does this also work for voices? Yes. I will do this for auditory hallucinations as well, where I'll record, play it back to see if I can hear what I was hearing at the time. So yeah, I know I use this. Some people will, instead of like some people I know that only have auditory hallucinations and not visual hallucinations, use an actual recorder, like the old ones they used to, like you see them in like TV shows and stuff. Um, yeah, some people will use those, and I imagine it's got to be pretty effective because you can play it back right away, stuff like that. I usually use it to identify visual hallucinations. Um, Auditory hallucinations, I think I'm able to decipher a little bit better that I'm having auditory hallucinations. Visual hallucinations are always tough for me. Can you touch your visual hallucinations? No. There is a such thing as tactile hallucinations, which is like a feel hallucination. It's a hallucination you can actually feel. I have not. I shouldn't say I have not experienced those. It's not something I experience regularly. Early on, before I was diagnosed or treated for my schizophrenia, I did experience like brief, small tactile hallucinations, but it's not something I'm constantly experiencing. Excuse me. If you guys are on TikTok and you want to ask any questions, jump on over to YouTube. I'm also getting pretty close to 50,000 followers on YouTube. And when we do that, when we hit 50,000, we're going to do a giveaway for some new thermoses and water bottles with my new logo on them. The username for YouTube is same as my name here on TikTok. Linda asked, why is the paranoia often directed at loved ones? I'm often stunned by my son thinking we are tracking his every movement. It's a super good question. And just for people who don't know, well, me and my wife were dating before we were married, when my symptoms were at an all-time high. I was convinced my wife was trying to poison me. And so that went on for like a while. I wouldn't eat food she gave me or drinks she tried to give me. Because I genuinely thought she was trying to poison me. So I think the reason for it is just because that's who you're around the most. It's not that my paranoia only was about my wife, it was about my mom. I would have it about like people that lived near me, people I saw on more than one occasion. I started thinking they were like watching me, and that's why I kept seeing them. So it's just because of exposure. Like if someone is paranoid and you live with them, unfortunately they're gonna start to think that you're involved with it some way. And so medication usually helps that, but I think it's just exposure. That's why. When someone on TikTok asked when my visual hallucinations were formed, I started having visual hallucinations shortly after auditory hallucinations. It was when I was about 19 that when I first started experiencing any of my symptoms. Do you still hallucinate when your eyes are shut? It's a super good question. I don't think so. And the reason I say I don't think so is because I can't actively think of times where I've closed my eyes and still had my hallucinations. But like, when you like close your eyes really tight and you still see stuff like behind your eyelids, like I get that, but I don't think it's necessarily hallucinations. So maybe I do, and I just don't recognize them as hallucinations. But yeah, not that I'm aware of. I'll just say that. Someone asked if I experience hallucinations 24/7. I used to before I was medicated. Now I experience hallucinations probably once a week is like an average. And obviously I'm not saying once every week at this certain time. Just like if I had to put a definitive like timeline on it, I'd say once, maybe twice a week. Someone asked how old I was when I started having symptoms. I was 19 when my symptoms began. Jeanette asked, how long do hallucinations usually last, and how long do you usually go without them? So hallucinations can last. I mean, this is one of those things where it becomes like a huge variety, because like back before I was medicated, I'd hallucinate like all day. Now that I'm medicated, it's still like a huge range. I could hallucinate for 10 minutes. I could hallucinate for 10 hours. There's still times where even with medication, I'll hallucinate for several days. So there's not like a specific amount of time. It really it depends on a lot of different things, like stressors going on in my life, things that I'm doing at that time, stuff like that. Someone on TikTok asked, what is a good medication for schizophrenia? I will say I don't ever give specifics about medication. And the reason for that is everyone has different brain chemistry. What works well for me won't necessarily work well for the next person. I do think medication is important, but I think that conversation needs to be had between a person who is diagnosed and their psychiatrist or doctor. And I don't think you should rely on what works for other people to work well for you. My mom has schizoaffective disorder. The meds that worked for her were the first meds they tried on me, and they did not do well. So we tried new meds that ended up working really well. And like I said, everyone's brain chemistry is different. So I don't ever talk about specific medication on here. And just a reminder, guys, if you're on TikTok and you want to make sure that I answer your question, jump on over to YouTube. I have a harder time keeping up on TikTok, and I'm going through each question individually on YouTube. Ella asked, do you ever deal with unpleasant side effects from medication? Absolutely. And so as someone who constantly talks about medication, and someone who I think I'm a huge advocate for medication, to the point where a lot of people get annoyed with me because, they don't want to, not everyone wants to take medication. And I don't want to take medication either, but I've come to the realization that I need it to live a healthy, comfortable life. And so I'd be lying if I said there was no side effects to antipsychotic medication. It can be a tough balance to find medication that works for you that has minimal side effects. So, one example, the one everyone's always afraid of, is weight gain. Yes, I have gained weight with my medication. I used to be like 150 pounds. I'm almost 220 pounds now. Part of that, though, isn't necessarily because of medication. While I was really struggling with symptoms, I wasn't the healthiest. And even now, I'm sitting here drinking a soda. I could be healthier. And so, like, I've had weight fluctuate even with antipsychotics. If you're someone who can stay on top of, eating healthy and working out, even on antipsychotics, then you'll be able to maintain weight pretty well. I am not the best with that, and I'm willing to admit that. But there will always be side effects with medication, but you have to outweigh how much it's helping you versus how much the side effects are hurting you. And we've finally got to a point where, yes, I'm still having a few negative side effects, but almost every single day of the week I can get through without active hallucinations. So it becomes worth it to me at that point. Now that I'm diagnosed, I feel bad about my symptoms. That's a super common thing, I feel like, John, because when you're not diagnosed, you don't really think about it as an illness. You don't really think about it at all. If anything, like, I thought that nothing was wrong with me before I was diagnosed, because you're delusional. And so getting the diagnosis is good, but it also means you have to come to terms with the fact that, like, hey, I have an illness. I have an illness that's going to be a lifelong illness that I have to maintain, and I'll probably have to take medication the rest of my life. And that's really difficult, but it's something that, once you're able to, like, kind of deal with come to terms with it, I guess, because that's what happened with me. Was I was the same way. I was really embarrassed about my symptoms. I hated it, and I still get embarrassed about it, but I also have to I try to recognize that like it's out of my control. And so it's something that I've learned to just like kind of live with, and like that's why I'm comfortable going out in public and stuff that I didn't used to be able to do, talk to people more, and like be able to still hold a job and all that is stuff that I didn't think I'd be able to do once I was diagnosed. What's it like when you come out of delusion? What do you think about it after? So a really good example is like I've talked about this a lot because it was my longest delusion. I had a delusion for quite a while that after a car accident I was in, I thought I was in a coma and everything happening around me was like a dream from this coma I was in. And so years later, once I recognized that, that was in fact a delusion, I look back on it and it's confusing and it's frustrating because now looking back, I'm like, that clearly, obviously doesn't make sense. But medication wasn't working as well for me back then. It's scary too because I look back and the frightening thing was during this time period where I thought everything was, a part of a dream I was having in like like in a coma. I was so delusional, and my hallucinations were telling me the only way to get back to my real life was to end this life in my dream state. Sorry, I don't mean to trigger anyone. I know this is like super sensitive talk, but um, so it's scary to think because I believed that at the time, and there was like several times where I like tried to hurt myself because of that, and it's a really terrifying thing. But it's also confusing because like now that I'm like medicated stuff, I look back and I'm like, I don't understand how I could have ever believed that. And that also makes it scarier too, to realize your brain can do something like that. Um, that your brain can do something like that without you even like recognizing it. It's kind of scary just for that reason. Someone asked, is schizophrenia progressive? Will it get worse with age, or could it? I believe that it has the potential to get worse. I believe that I've also heard of people just kind of maintaining the same symptoms over time. I believe this is a very individual experience when it comes to the progression of your illness. Because I think there's a lot of factors. Are you taking medication? Have you always been on medication? Does the medication work for you? Does it not work for you? Do you take long term injectables? Do you take um, excuse me, do you take like capsules, stuff like that? I think there's a lot of different factors that lead to the progression of it. Someone asked, Marie said, how can I get someone to take her meds? She's an adult, so it's her choice. She has no insight about her illness and doesn't think she needs it. Super common with people with schizophrenia. Unfortunately, the best advice I can give you is what my family did was were they were there when I needed them. They recognized they couldn't help me in that moment, but as long as you're there, you're constantly supporting them. You're trying to have those conversations, letting them know you're worried and you want to help. Then when they do finally recognize they need help, they'll come to you right away, which is what I did with my family. Like you said, you can't really force the person to take medication, even if you were able to like get them involuntarily, admitted and get them briefly taking medication. They may not stick to it as soon as they, get out. So the best thing you can do is be supportive, try to help them, try to communicate that to them. But with delusions and paranoia and hallucinations, you won't be able to, it's not going to happen overnight. This is going to be something where hopefully they get to a point of comfortability, have some moments of clarity where they're like, hey, I think I do need help, and they'll come to you for help. I know that's not the answer people want, but that's what I genuinely believe is the best answer. Um, and so I know that's incredibly frustrating because not only am I a person living with schizophrenia, I watched my mom struggle with schizophrenia, and so it's frustrating. I know not only as like having that person as a loved one, but I've been not only a person who lives with schizophrenia, I've also been a caretaker of someone with schizophrenia. It's good to see you live again. Thank you so much. Sorry if I'm missing questions. If I miss questions and you really want me to answer it, post it again and I'll try to get back to it. Do people use your mental health against you? I find it really hard to get help because people don't believe me because of my diagnosis. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that some people are going to treat me different, act different because of my diagnosis. I tell most people that I have schizophrenia. I didn't used to, but I mean, this is kind of my full time job now. So most people know that I have schizophrenia. My coworkers, everything like that. So I'm pretty open and honest with it at this point. And it does. I mean, certain people don't understand it, and they're not willing to understand it. And so it definitely is at a point where like some people won't believe the things I say because of my schizophrenia. And it's nothing I can really do. I can only control what I do, not what other people do. Is it hereditary? Schizophrenia does have genetic factors. So like my mother has schizophrenia, which did put me more at risk for developing schizophrenia, but didn't necessarily mean I would develop it. My mom has had 3 kids. I'm the only one who has experienced schizophrenia symptoms. So someone asked what I think of the LEAP method. I'm not familiar with that. So I would have to look it up, or maybe I'm familiar with it and I just am not aware of it at this time. I'm not familiar with the acronym at this time. Someone asked, what do you do when your sister's wife uses your illness against you and stalking your YouTube, calling the cops on you? Oh man, that's kind of a loaded question. She's using your illness against you and stalking your YouTube and calling the cops on you. I mean, as long as you're not doing anything wrong, like I have interactions. I mean, like I've had interactions with the cops, and as long as I'm not doing anything wrong, they can't do anything, right? So unfortunately, I mean, if she's like watching your YouTube and calling the cops on you, I think eventually if they keep coming and they're like, okay, she's not doing anything wrong. This other person is calling the cops on her for no reason. She could get in trouble for filing a false police report, or you could even look into getting a lawyer and suing for harassment, something like that. Do doctors ever question your diagnosis? I have a very good, supportive healthcare team. From my doctor to my psychiatrist to the nurses that work with me, I've had very, very good people on my side. And so if anyone ever has questioned it, which, schizophrenia is one of those illnesses where I'm sure they have to exhaust a lot of different things before they give a diagnosis of schizophrenia. There's a lot of things that, the symptoms of schizophrenia could be, whether it's like physical or other mental health ailments. I'm sure there are people along my like mental health journey who didn't necessarily like believe it or anything like that. Oh, Jess, hello. Jess is on TikTok. Everyone say hello to Jess Ken. She's amazing. She's my favorite person on YouTube. Oh, she's on YouTube now too. Jessica. Shout out to Jessica. There's a famous person in my YouTube stream. I hope you're doing well, Jess. Jessica, what are you doing? You didn't have to do that. I mean, I appreciate it, but you didn't have to do that. Everyone say hi to Jess. Let's see. You're everywhere. Literally, I looked over. I saw you on TikTok. I was like, oh, Jess is on TikTok. And then I look over and I saw you were on YouTube. I don't know how many. Well, you got a lot of devices. You could be watching them all at the same time and still have devices left over, I feel like. See, people are excited to see Jess. I would be too. I'm always excited to see Jess. Let's see. Someone said, Ella said, I was mentally ill for years before my schizophrenia diagnosis. I was like going on 2.5 years of having symptoms before I was diagnosed. Some of that was personal choice. I didn't believe anything was wrong with me and I refused to go get a diagnosis. But also, that's really common for people with schizophrenia to either get misdiagnosed early on or later down the line have like new symptoms where they recognize that it's schizophrenia and not another disorder. I know my my mom was diagnosed with bipolar disorder originally, and then re-diagnosed with schizoaffective, as a like schizoaffective bipolar. Got Allison and Jess in here. My two favorite people. Don't tell Daisy May I said that. My fat dog will be very offended if she finds out I said that. So Linda said, I'm very curious what you gain from SMART and how it has helped you with your schizophrenia. I guess I don't know what you mean by SMART, or if that's an acronym or something. Let me know in the comments. I'll answer the question. I guess I just don't know what you mean by SMART. I was diagnosed with BPD and it was so awful. Yeah, that's another one that's really common for a misdiagnosis with schizophrenia. I've heard is people can often get diagnosed with BPD or bipolar disorder before getting their actual diagnosis of schizophrenia. If you guys are on TikTok and you have any questions, jump on over to YouTube and I will answer any questions on there. How are the glasses? That is good. That might be what that other person was asking. Actually, that makes sense. The smart glasses. So for anyone who doesn't know, I got these glasses. Someone bought them from my Amazon wishlist. They are Ray-Ban smart glasses. So they have cameras in the lenses. Basically, what I wanted to do with these, and I've already been able to use it once before. My intention was, if I thought I was having a hallucination, I can click the top button here and it'll start recording. And then I can go back onto my phone. It automatically sends it to my phone. I can go on my phone, look at it, make sure, watch the video, see if the person I was talking to was really there. The reason for that is sometimes it gets super embarrassing to just like pull out my phone and point it in someone's face. So that's why I got the glasses. It still has a light on it though. So if I start recording, a light turns on. So it probably would still be a little embarrassing, but I feel like it's a little less obnoxious than like whipping out my phone and pointing it at someone. And so that was kind of the idea of using it. Also, it has speakers in it. So I can like listen to music or a podcast or something to help distract me a little bit if I'm having symptoms. Someone asked, are they expensive? Full disclosure, they are I think $299, so they're pretty expensive. Someone was amazing enough to buy them from my Amazon wish list. I didn't even expect anyone to. I put them in there so eventually I could buy them myself, and someone did buy them for me, which was very, very nice, and I'm really grateful. They didn't when they sent them to me, they just put initials on there and not a username or anything. So I wanted to make a video thanking them, and I couldn't because they didn't tell me who they were. Which, I mean, maybe they didn't want to. Maybe they wanted it to be an anonymous thing, which I understand. But oh yeah, just said, I feel like women are misdiagnosed a lot. Yeah, that's super true. I mean, I kind of saw it in my own scenario where my mom was misdiagnosed for years, literally 5 to 6 years. She went misdiagnosed, and I think the reason my diagnosis was easier though was because she was misdiagnosed early on. So I am pretty grateful for that, for the fact that I was able to get my diagnosis so much quicker. But yes, I think statistically, if you look into, I'm sure there's a statistic out there about how women are misdiagnosed more. I also know that people of color tend to get misdiagnosed or improperly diagnosed. Like they go in, they should be receiving a diagnosis and they don't. There have been studies to prove that as well. Where do you order those? The smart glasses, I think you can order them on Ray-Ban's website. I think Facebook, because it's like a thing for Facebook and Ray-Bans, or like Meta and Ray-Bans. So that it's collab for them. I think you can order them right on Ray-Ban's website. Cameras have helped you identify hallucinations too. Yes, it's been a really effective tool for me too. Love the long hair. Thank you so much. TikTok, just so you guys know, my phone is about to die. So if you're on my TikTok live and you want to keep watching or asking any questions, jump on over to YouTube because we are about to lose you guys. My phone's under 10% right now. But yeah, we're going to keep answering a few questions over on YouTube. And then if my phone ends up dying, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check out my YouTube whenever you guys get a chance. All right, let's see. Yo, what's up, Super Committee? How's it going? Is there any other good schizophrenia communicators? Like, are you talking about advocates, like other schizophrenia advocates? Because I definitely have recommendations if that's what you're looking for. What's a good way to handle if a friend is actively hallucinating around you? I would have a conversation with them and ask what they would prefer, because everyone, I feel like, is going to want something a little different. A lot of people say with schizophrenia, they would prefer that you acknowledge that their hallucinations are not there. That seems to really upset me in the moment. I actually prefer distractions. I would really prefer that people without schizophrenia, if they recognize I'm having symptoms, try to distract me from them. So talk to me about anything else. Get my attention away from, what I'm experiencing, and that seems to help me out a lot. Yep. Someone said living well with schizophrenia. Yeah, that's Lauren's page. They are amazing. They're a really good content creator. I hope to do more with them in the future. I have a couple videos that we shot together that should be coming up soon. I was unable to edit them myself, so Lauren from Living Well with Schizophrenia offered to edit them for me. So thank you to them. I want to make sure that I properly acknowledge that I could not figure out how to edit like an interview myself, because I do I'm not a great editor. That's why I do so well with TikTok and I struggle with YouTube, is because I am not I'm learning a lot right now, but I'm not super great with it. I think I may be showing symptoms. What were your first warning signs? I started experiencing paranoia before anything, but if you think for even a second you're experiencing symptoms, I would meet with your regular doctor, tell them what symptoms you're having, and see if they can give you a referral to a psychiatrist. Because I don't know where you live, but pretty much anywhere in the United States, it's very difficult to get into a psychiatrist right now. It's a very needed field, and there's not enough help. So the wait lists, even for getting in to see a psychiatrist, can be very long. So make sure that you definitely get going with, if you think that could be a possibility, try to ask your primary care doctor about getting to see a psychiatrist as soon as possible. YouTube is hard, not gonna lie. I'm glad I started on YouTube before TikTok. Yeah, comparatively, it must be super easy for you to jump on TikTok, because I went from TikTok to YouTube. And so I was like, man, I got TikTok down. This will be easy. And then I got on YouTube. I'm like, why is there so much editing? This is ridiculous. Because TikTok, I edit as I go. And then once I'm done, I post it. Usually I don't even apply filters. It's just done, posted. I can't do that with YouTube. And it's frustrating because I am not a good editor. I need to just get someone to edit videos for me. But it's I get so nervous about that because of the type of content I do. My wording has to be very specific. I don't want anything to be, edited in a way where I don't want anything to be miscommunicated. It's very specific, and I get nervous about having a third party person edit it. I don't know why, because they'd edit it, they'd send it back to me. I could always request another edit. So I don't know why I'm so nervous about it, but I'm just that's my ongoing struggle with wanting to get an editor. But yeah, that's my never ending problem I have with editing. Oh man. But yeah, oh man, yeah, TikTok's gonna die here soon. Someone on TikTok did ask, what is my thoughts on electric shock treatment? My thoughts are, it's not the 1800s. I know that's something that people seriously thought would help at one point. I don't think there's any proof that electric shock therapy has in any way benefited a person with schizophrenia, or anyone for that matter. I've heard about that with other disorders and stuff too. And I'm I just don't think there's any evidence that electric shock therapy has been effective in treating any ailments. Maybe I'm wrong. If you can find a study that proves otherwise, let me know. Yeah, it's not the 1800s. I'm I don't know how to answer that. Oh man, no, yeah, I don't think that's a very effective way to deal with things. Sasha asked, what's the difference between schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder? Can you have both? You can't really have both because schizoaffective disorder in itself is schizophrenia, but it's also the combination of a mood disorder like bipolar. So schizoaffective disorder, for all intensive purposes, it's not like the exact diagnosis, but if you have schizoaffective disorder, you are also usually experiencing a lot of schizophrenia symptoms. So schizoaffective disorder is meant to be kind of a combination of schizophrenia symptoms and mood disorder symptoms. So you can't technically be diagnosed with both. You would be diagnosed with one or the other. Someone else just came into TikTok and asked, what if this whole time you're just a psychic medium? I'm going to start by saying, do not say this to people with schizophrenia. Second of all, no. Third of all, I don't really believe in that stuff. Fourth of all, schizophrenia is at this point, well documented, well researched mental illness. For everything they don't know about it, there's a lot they do know now. And so a lot of people want to connect schizophrenia to religion or spirituality, stuff like that. It's a severe mental illness that is found to be very treatable with antipsychotic medication. We'll just leave it at that. No, I know some people like I get very heated about this because it's like always in my comments. I know not everyone means it in like a rude or disrespectful way, and I don't ever want to belittle someone's beliefs. I want to start by saying that. I don't ever want to belittle someone's beliefs, but I get it so often that it gets really frustrating and hard for me to recognize that someone might genuinely be curious. So, second of all, no. Sorry, yeah, I do. I get really heated about that really quick, and I don't mean to. That'll do. Yeah, exactly. uh you handle these questions so well, it makes me crazy. It gets to a point where like after 3 years of doing this, it's every one of my videos gets these comments, and so I've gotten mad about it before, and I found that doesn't help. And the best thing I can do is try to educate people so that they know in the future. What would you say to someone who is newly diagnosed? My first piece of advice would be don't be hesitant to medication because of the stigma surrounding medication. Um, because I postponed medication for longer than I should have. I also I started doing really well with my medication, so I don't need my medication anymore, and then I would quit, and then my problems would get much worse again. So don't be afraid of medication. Be willing to be very open and honest with your care team because they can't help you properly if you're not open and honest with them. I know everyone's afraid of being, put in the psych ward, stuff like that. They can't help you unless you're honest and communicating effectively with them. So you have to be honest. And if they think you're a danger to yourself or other, you may get put in a psychiatric facility briefly for like 72-hour hold or something like that. But you can't get the help you need if you're not honest with your care team. And so that's like a big thing I want to remind people when they're just starting out. Every video I make, someone says, so I feel you. I have not seen those comments before. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. That's crazy. The teeth thing I get all the time too, Jess, because I mean, you could fit another me between my buck teeth, I get that. So I get the teeth thing, but the first comment, I've never seen anyone comment that stuff on your videos, but I believe you. I know that I believe you for sure. But yeah, oh, geez. I can text it. You don't have to prove it. No, I believe you. 100% I believe you. I'm sure I just don't notice them. But like the same thing with mine. I'll tell people the type of comments I get, and they're like, you don't get those comments. I'm like, oh, they're there. You got to look through my comments a bit, but they're there. Oh, man. Jeez, that is nuts. Yeah, the T thing I get all the time. Yeah, don't lie to your doctor or lawyer. That is amazing advice. Do not do that. Do you face a lot of ableism and stigma amongst peers? Yeah, I mean, even people in other health communities like uh, can be very non-understanding about mental illness. I go to a lot of conventions that are all sorts of medical illnesses and disorders, and so people with physical illnesses sometimes don't always understand mental illness or don't take it as seriously. So I've even seen that before. They're funny, LOL. That's what I think about a lot of my hate comments too. I get a lot about my looks too because I understand. I am a big goofy looking dude. Uh and I'm pretty used to comments about my appearance, my teeth, like stuff like that. I'm fairly used to it at this point. So I still think they're funny too. Everyone say goodnight to Jess. Jess is leaving. I'm probably actually gonna close up here soon too. Um, yeah, so definitely keep in mind if you have any last minute questions, I'll probably answer a few more and get going here. I get no views, so no hate. Yeah. I mean, everyone starts out when you start off social media, if you're like new to advocacy, if you're new to social media, there was a time my videos got no views too. There was a time where like no one saw my content. So I completely understand. You got to start somewhere though, right? Everyone starts with 0 followers, so all right. Any last minute questions before we get going? We're capping an hour here, so we got about 3 minutes, and then I'll answer like one or two more questions if anyone has anything. Same with TikTok, since we're finishing up here. If anyone has anything in TikTok, go ahead and. Someone on TikTok asked, I hear you speak a lot about medication. Um, Someone close to me is schizoaffective. How do you feel about no meds? I am a very firm believer that if a doctor believes you need medication for your schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder and you choose not to take it, that is extremely frustrating because there are a lot of people with these disorders that would kill to be able to get a diagnosis and access to medication and treatment. So it really frustrates me. In the end of the day, it's someone's personal choice. And I know a lot of people with schizophrenia don't think they need the help because they're either delusional, paranoid, stuff like that. But it's really frustrating me when I'm speaking to someone and I can tell they understand their diagnosis, their illness, and they choose to keep going without medication. And it's like really like it's one thing if you're living comfortably and you don't need meds, that's completely different. If you're someone who's not functioning well and you're having a lot of issues, then I'm a firm believer in medication to the point where I know it irritates a lot of people because I know a lot of people try to live life med free. Believe me, I wanted to do that too. I didn't want to be taking 6 medications every day, but here we are. So, it kind of is what it is. Someone asked, did the smart glasses work? I've been able to use them a few times to help me identify hallucinations. I'm going to continue using them, see how I like them. They're still pretty new. I've only had them a week or two. And fortunately, I haven't been having many like hallucinations or symptoms in the past couple weeks. The one day I did have them a few days ago, I was able to use the glasses to kind of help me identify. Someone said, I've been on antipsychotic medications and my thing is the weight gain. I experienced weight gain too, but I was willing to have a little bit of weight gain to be able to be fully functional and be able to, work full time and be able to do all my speaking stuff. And I couldn't do that without medication. So I was willing to make the trade off. I also have found that some of the weight gain is just because I'm not as healthy as I could be. I could be exercising more. I could be drinking less soda. I could be eating healthier. I'm not doing those things. So some of it's from medication. Some of it's from, me not being able to keep up with some of my self-care. All right. Well, TikTok officially just died. My phone died over there. So I think this is a good time to end the live for today. This is my 3rd day in a row of YouTube lives. and lives in general. So we're doing really good. Tune in. I think I might even come back tomorrow. We might just keep this running. We might just make this a nightly occurrence because I've been really enjoying all the questions. I miss having all the engagement on my page and being able to talk to everyone and, talk about all these things that I think people are still having a lot of questions about. So Allison's proud of me. She's so good. She's a good kid. Don't burn yourself out, man. If I feel like I'm getting to the point where I get burned out, I will. I'll take a break for a day or two or a week or two. Like I'm not someone who will continuously do this to the point where I am like unhappy. I will do it until I no longer feel like I can do it or until I feel like it's a problem for me. I'm very good about taking the time away that I need. So you'll plan on being here tomorrow. I look forward to seeing you guys. Everyone take it easy. Have a wonderful night, and I will see you all soon.